All right, Melissa, I am super pumped to talk with you today. Have a casual conversations around the learnings that have been thrust upon us in this COVID era of especially around converting onsite to remote facilitation. Now, you're an expert and congrats on the summer. You're going to be at your company for 10 years at ExperiencePoint, which is
Yep.
really an exciting milestone. And you're an expert in human-centered thinking. So I'm very excited to share some best practices, but specifically what I hope everyone learns from our convo is how to shortcut some of the mistakes that you and I have made. So we've had a chance to work together and do some training together and learn from each other. But over to you, what other things would you like everybody to know before we get into our discussion today?
Yeah. I think you really nailed it. I think there's a ton that we've learned in the past couple of months since we've all had to, pivot our businesses and pivot the way we're thinking. But I think that the center of it all is really that, how do I keep my customers at the center? And that's where the human-centered thinking comes in, and what I hope that we can help people understand, and how to do that really quickly and not make a bunch of mistakes along the way.
Yes. It was one of the fun experiences that we've had together because we've done some sales training together. And I think that's probably a good way to level set for everybody about like our biases or what we're going to be bringing to this conversation. So what was your experience doing remote training with your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and in partnership with you guys.
Yeah. In general, like what are the best practices, but also like specifically what works well, or what are some things that people should know about thinking about doing this type of work remote?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, we've truly been learning our way through it as well. We've historically delivered in person. And so we had to think really quickly about how to make this not just like an okay virtual experience, but like a really awesome virtual experience, because that's what people need right now, right? We're all at home. We're kind of doing the same things. We're getting like Zoom fatigue. How do we make it really unique? So just a couple things that I think we've really learned quickly, even internally, is like, don't be shy to turn on your video. That was something that I think really helped. And I know you guys also make those recommendations. Be present. Another one that really helped as well is in a lot of the platforms, you have an ability to hide your own face. So it lets you focus on the audience that's in front of you.
That's super funny because I did read a stat that it was like over 80% of the time when you're first starting to like get on video, you spend looking at yourself instead of looking at everybody else. So it can be really helpful. Just, make sure your hair looks good and then like stop looking at yourself.
Move it aside.
I think that's a really nice thing to remind everyone of. Yeah.
It's true. That's a really simple one, but I think one that we learned quite quickly in the first couple of weeks, and it was really interesting as we started interacting with our clients virtually all the time. Very quickly you could tell who the early adopters were versus the clingers on of no video.
Yeah.
So trying to gently nudge people to turn on their video by having yours on was one quick learning for sure.
Yeah. I think one of the things when we were preparing for our discussion today, we talked about this idea of suddenly having to go remote is this difference between intent versus execution.
Yeah.
And I think that this is one of the biggest challenges is if you have prepared to do an onsite, or that's how you've always done it in the past, it can be really alarming to think about what is different. Now, video and drive engagement, I think, yes, step one to do that. But let's talk about some of these implications of having to switch it suddenly remote. So have you had an experience of having to do that recently?
Absolutely. Yeah. Us, like many others. I mean, so as I shared earlier, we do a lot of our work historically is in-person training. Luckily, we do use a tech-enabled component to do our programming and our work. And so that helped give us a jumping off point to pivot to virtual, because that was something that we could incorporate. It's a web-enabled thing. So screen share works and all that. So we had that as a starting point. But right away, we had to make a decision kind of, early March and say, okay, we're doing this. We could pontificate and build a strat plan and talk about it for a couple of months, or we can just start trying it. So we quickly spun up sprint teams internally. And our first team was our change offer. That was kind of the first to go, kind of felt show ready-ish. And they quickly worked for I think it was 2 weeks and put a date in the calendar. It was third week of March. and they said, okay, we're going live virtual in this amount of time. And I think that just lit the fire, because you can't spend endless hours thinking about all the perfection elements and all the things that should be. You just have to try stuff out.
So how did you structure that sprint? What was different about doing this than you would have done in a traditional office setting?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the sprint. So not new to our team. We certainly spin up sprint teams anytime we want to kind of work on a bit of like what I would call a crunchy problem. And this is like a great opportunity to incorporate design thinking, which is in our cultural DNA, a big part of what we do. And so what it is just like really focused energy, usually for 4 or 5 days, around a specific problem. And so what we did quite quickly is, instead of kind of paying attention to that sort of departmental type team alignment, we said, okay, we've got, 6 different sprint teams. You're going on this, you're going on this, you're going on this. And we, put a 6-week date in the sand and set up some deliverables, and we were off to the races. So that it was like, yeah, I guess a bit more of like a hybrid sort of approach versus this more traditional approach. Yeah.
But so what I picked up from what you said, though, is that this is the element that makes any sprint, whether it's remote or virtual, you have to have a very clear deadline. And you said like, 3 weeks to do this, but then there's also all of these subtasks there. The focus point is like really making sure that we have a defined problem that ignites everybody to take action. And we're minimizing this like cross-team, I guess, micromanaging that can sometimes happen if we have people like, oh, I want access to this, or like, oh, I have an opinion on that part of it. It's like, we don't have time for everybody to share like whatever things that they want to work on. This needs to happen. We're going live in 3 weeks. This is the best way that you can help. So what are some learnings or I guess frustrations that may have come out of this new way of thinking about it?
Oh, there's lots. I'm looking forward to like actually having a spare moment to think through, what are those best practices, so that we have that, right? Like written down as a bit of a go forward point. But for right now, like one of the big ones that I think has really resonated for me in trying to integrate between the teams is the notion of going slow to go fast. And like this thought of going slow right now in what's going on in the world is a bit scary. But what I mean by go slow is like, give yourself a day or two to get aligned, get all the people together, diverge, bring it all out, and then like really quickly converge. And then you know exactly where you're going. So give yourself a bit of space, but don't dwell on it. Do not dwell on it. And then I think another big learning, and this is really a big part of the design thinking process, is test to learn versus build to launch. So with test to learn, you're just iterating and you're trying stuff out and you're bringing stuff in front of clients. And you're learning as you go. Build to launch, too often we have this really kind of far away idea of perfection in our minds. And like in this crazy COVID world, we don't have time for that right now. We need to be scrappy, and we need to just keep trying stuff out as we move forward.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that goes back to the whole theme that we had is like intent versus execution. Like a lot of us like want to deliver the best possible thing to our clients, but this sudden, and I kind of think of it as like crossing the chasm, like everybody's suddenly remote. There was no like slow transition. People have been working remote for a while. Everyone's doing it. Like the chasm has disappeared. We don't have time to make everything polished. And this idea of intent, I think, is really valuable. And so I want to go into some like tactics so people watching this can see like, actually, what do we mean by implementing it? And one of the ways that I have found and actually pleasantly surprised that worked doing my on-site sales academy and delivering a normal training was I would go in and have posters and post-it notes and get people to work together on a team and lean in. And that's not possible anymore, or so I thought, because Zoom has an amazing tool that I use for my video trainings called breakout rooms. And this has been a really powerful way to get some of that same experience. But I've also been pleasantly surprised that when you put like a large group, like I had a training group of about 50 people, and there's always the usual suspects that raised their hand and wanted to jump in and add their attention. In breakout rooms, even the quietest people all of a sudden became like very good at engaging. And I couldn't believe the amount of benefit that longer breakout rooms had versus me trying to facilitate a large group. And with this idea of intent versus execution, I thought it'd be helpful to share like a quick example about how we've run some of these things. And
Sure.
we had this experience together, I think, with your team. There was some like version of this breakout that we used. But just to show everybody how quick it is to get started, what I have at the top is a column for each breakout group. And I would put about 4 people in each room. If you do 2, the challenge is that if somebody doesn't show up or they're off mute, then you're leaving somebody alone. If you put in 8 people, it's too many. Like you have that risk of, only one person coming in, but having 3 or 4 people in a group and then defining like who you're talking about and then what is the steps to go through, there's a really cool thing that happens. And I call it the CrossFit effect, where people can see like how fast like your breakout room is doing compared to the column next to you, which is completely different than giving everybody a separate sheet. And so using breakouts in Zoom has been a game changer for me, like one of the best things that I really leaned into. And just like you saw, it doesn't look pretty, but it got consistently really powerful feedback. What
Yeah.
about you? What are some things that you have been delightfully surprised has worked better doing it virtual than on-site?
Yeah, we've learned a lot as well. And one funny thing about Zoom breakout rooms that I will say is so we use them in our programs as well. And I love the moment as a participant where you're like the little thing pops up and you're like, who am I going to be with? It's like Zoom breakout room roulette. Who's it going to be this time? And it's kind of this like weird moment, but it's fun. Like it's close enough to being in an in-person room and wondering like, okay, who am I going to partner with this time? So that was one fun thing that I would say about Zoom breakout rooms.
Yeah, it is like really fun to have those connections with people now that we don't see everybody in the office anymore. It's like, it's nice to have like a private, not super formal, like, oh, let's catch up for coffee, but like have like a big group setting and then a chance to just like chat in a smaller group and then go back to the big group. I do think that that's a really nice element to this.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah. And then you'd asked me to share a little bit maybe about some of what we're trying. So for us, everything that we do, we have either paired activities or group collaborative activities, right? And particularly with anything to do with innovation and human-centered design, like you got to work together. You can't do that in a little one-person corner of your office. So we quickly had to explore online tools that could help us do that. Okay, how do we replicate what was an in-person activity with, to your point, Post-its or physical materials or whatever? How do we do this online? And in a way that makes people feel engaged. And to your point, if you've got too many people, social loafing, people aren't like participating, they're kind of like sitting laying back, let other people do it. So we actually incorporated the wonderful folks at Mural into what we're doing. And what was really great about that is that it was the ultimate way to mimic that kind of in-person collaboration experience. I'm going to share my screen here real quick as an example.
Okay.
This is please forgive the Picasso level artistry. This is drawn by yours truly. This is just
Beautiful.
one way that we're using Mural. This is just like a really quick prototyping for it. So in the design thinking process, sort of in the later stages, you come up with your ideas and then you're saying, okay, what idea am I going to bring forward? And what are my assumptions that I need to kind of test out? And so one really quick way that we recommend testing it out is just to draw it out. It's basically a storyboard. So in 4 frames, you're telling the story of kind of that idea and trying to give people a more visual representation. And this is really a design thinking best practice. So what we have here is we were working on, it was an internal challenge actually with our team at the office, or virtually at the virtual office. And we were trying to find a way to make folks feel more confident in bringing forward new ideas, particularly in front of, say, like executives or leadership. Because now more than ever, we need to like harness that, brain trust across the organization. There's so much changing. You've got like people on the front lines that are hearing new things from customers every day. The news is changing every day. How do you bring that in and then feel confident being like, hey, we should do this? So this is kind of just an example. I won't walk through all the details, but what I love about Mural is like it has the draw feature. You've got the sticky notes that you can move around. And then similar to what you shared with your spreadsheet, you have the ability to, use different columns and kind of see what other people are doing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like how that looks because one of the things that stands out to me, it's like you don't have to be a great drawer. Like this idea of sharing insight with like info doodling, combining some words with some drawings. But the thing that really resonates with me with Mural, and it's like a complete step up from like using Excel versus Google Sheets or other things like Trello. It's a really valuable way to get everyone to collaborate on one board, but also see what other people are doing in real time. So it has that CrossFit effect that I was developing with the breakout rooms, but now delivered in a much more visual context. I think that's such a really cool way of thinking through that.
Yeah.
So,
and like one quick personal story is my 5-year-old ended up crashing this session. And he immediately was mesmerized by the fact that, mommy was drawing at work and, sat on my lap and helped me pick the colors. And, we've got this like weird personal life thing collision that's happening with work right now. And so it felt really good to engage him instead of saying, no, you can't be here right now. And he just thought it was the coolest thing. So I think he thinks my job is about 10 times cooler than he thought it was a couple of weeks ago.
That's awesome. Did he come in with like a yellow jacket and just like storm into the room?
Yeah, that's right. Instead of pushing him away, I was like, come help mom draw.
That's awesome. I really love that. And I know I'm going to force it in there, but I thought your story about that situation was really kind because I think you got a note about that after from a colleague. Is that right?
Yeah, I sure did. So our founder messaged me after a situation where it wasn't quite as jovial as that one. I think it was like a big team meeting and I was trying to do a report out on something. And, my kid was there and he's, whining or whatever. He probably wanted a snack. Let's be honest. It's my other job, snack provider. And my founder sends me this private note that day and just said, you know what? This is really hard. And I remember when my kids were 5 and they really need you and ExperiencePoint needs you too. And we recognize that you are trying to do it all and it's really hard to do it all right now. And like, thank you for everything you're doing. And I sort of just sat there, I was like, oh. But those kinds of messages from leadership and then being able to translate that over to how you're interacting with your own customers, forget the like, I hope you're okay during these difficult times, like what's the real story? That meant a lot, that email from my founder and made me want to figure out ways to convey that personal element to
I think that's it's a powerful story. And it goes back to this. I feel like that's the real theme of what we've been talking about today. It's like the intent there mattered more. It's like we all have been hearing like be empathetic, but that's such an amazing example of actually demonstrating empathy. It's like putting in the work of like recognizing what's going on for you. And then that was also very meaningful because we want to deliver something very polished. We are still professionals, even though we're working from home. This real stuff happens. We need to embrace when it happens. We don't need to optimize for it. We don't need to invite the kids, but if it happens, it's perfectly fine. If the dog barks in the background, it's like, hey, we're all there. Like we get it. We're trying to do the best. And it's the intent behind it that I think everybody could benefit from. So
absolutely.
Thank you for the time today to go through this. And also I love like seeing like the real example. It's like, it's not about the polished look of your stick figures. It's about the intent of that project, which is how do you communicate ideas to executives? So thank you for everything. Is there any closing thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up today?
You know what? I know examples are always so helpful. So on the intent versus execution side, I think we were talking about that sprint in those first couple of weeks and these quite quick deliverables we had. I think for our team, the biggest learning was seeing the feedback from our clients, talking about these virtual offers, NPS scores, top level. But most importantly, the comments were, thank you for helping us pivot. Thank you for creating these virtual offers. Like we know this is going to just keep getting better and better. The receptivity of our clients to this scrappiness and just like make it up as we go and work together to make it great. They were so open with it. There was zero expectation of perfection. And that was really cool. And it was like reinforcing, okay, we're all on the right track and let's just keep doing this together. So yeah,
That's it.
try it. That's my
Yeah,
message to you.
I
Just
love
try
it.
it.
It's a great takeaway. We're all trying to figure this out. This is uncharted territory, and it's not about like, at least for me, it's not using this as an opportunity to like crush the competition, but everyone that can will survive from this. But the way that we can be better in what we're delivering to our clients is, how do we get there faster? And so I think using the techniques that you've described and really thinking about human-centered design instead of like, I like this idea of like build to launch. It's like, no, let's just get it out there, learn as we go. And like really, like, this is the perfect time to apply a lot of the best practices that you've exuded and taught to everybody. So thank you so much for joining today. I look forward to our next chat.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Bye.